Howdy, AOJ255 students at Southwestern Illinois College. I'm your instructor again, Steve Johnson, and I'm going to give you some video instructions for your next assignment. This next assignment is related to Chapter 8 and Chapter 9 in your book, Criminal Investigations. And in Chapters 8 and Chapter 9, Chapter 8 talks about the crime laboratory, and Chapter 9 talks about injury and death investigations. So we're going to relate that directly to the double murder investigation that you've been working all the way through. By the way, some of you had some really, really good ideas. I will tell you that most of you missed a pager/cell phone. I say cell phone because in modern investigation, more than likely it would be a cell phone rather than a pager. But basically, it's the same type of communication device. But most of you missed a pager, and most of you missed the second gun. Some of you saw it in the truck, but there's another gun that's out there. So I'm going to walk you through a couple things. And basically what you're going to do, everything that I talk about here, at the end of this, you're going to type a report. And that report is basically a report that you are going to send to the crime lab detailing what you want the crime lab to do with these items of evidence that you located. So you're going to use Chapter 8 and you're going to use Chapter 9 to fully explain what you want the crime lab to do, what you want them to test, what you want them to do with these pieces of evidence. Because I want you to think in terms, if you just send a gun to the lab, they're going to say, well, what do you want done with it? You have to tell them what you want done. So how do you know that? Because most of you aren't detectives. Well, you read Chapter 8 and you read Chapter 9 and you tell them. So you can list the item, where it was found, who found it, and then have bullets directly after it dictating to the crime lab where they will, what type of tests they will do, and exactly what they'll do. So I'm going to start at the beginning. So this is not just going to be notes to the crime lab. It's also going to be your report, basically, of what happened with your investigation. So the very first thing, many of you in the investigation so far have not said anything about, you said about 27th and Trendley, but you haven't said much about 43rd or 42nd and Converse and what actually happened there. So you're going to need to actually put in your report that you asked for crime scene technicians to respond to both of those. And then you need to list in your report what you asked the crime scene technicians to look for. In other words, what did they actually try to find? The other thing that you're going to find out in Chapter 9, injury and death investigations, is that most people, I should say many people that are murdered, they know their attacker. It's unusual for it to be completely unknown type of person, although that does happen. So I want you to think about, no one said this yet, identifying both of the victims and finding out information about them. How would you find out information about them? Because once again, when you read Chapter 9, you're going to see that most people know their attackers. Not always true, but it could be. Also, I want you to think about this. I'm not going to give you the answer here. You're going to have to do a little bit of research that may not even be in your book. You may have to go online. But we have two vehicles that are crashed together. And you guys have a lot of different theories, and you're doing exactly what we did in the Major Case Squad. In fact, I'll tell you, in the Major Case Squad, many of us got into arguments, arguing over what happened there. Now, of course, we're not duking it out with fists and knives in those arguments, but it was verbal arguments, bantering back and forth on different theories. So if you have two vehicles crashed together, what type of resource could you call out to the scene to use science to determine exactly what happened? And there's a special group out there, and I'm not going to tell you the answer because you got to find that out. So then let's talk about the pager/cell phone. So most of you missed it because the pictures aren't super clear. A lot of you sent me messages on it. And I was going to tell you, that's real life. That's what happened. And let me explain. The very first time that they searched, the crime scene investigators and the detectives, they didn't find it. And one of the things we know in a criminal investigation is if you have nowhere to go forward, then you start going backwards and you redo everything that you did where maybe you missed something. So the major K squad commander made a determination that we don't have anywhere to go forward, so we're going to send different detectives to do different things and go backwards. So they originally had searched that pickup truck. When they moved the pickup truck with a tow truck to a secure location in a tow yard, apparently that jostled some things around the back of the pickup truck. And lo and behold, the second time they searched, they found that pager in the back bed of the pickup truck. Now, some of you are so young, you may not have a clue what a pager is, but you can text on it by typing back and forth and things like that. And you can, excuse me, send messages and receive messages. So based upon what I'm telling you there, as an investigator, what would you be looking for on that pager? And might it be important not only what would you find from that specific pager, but could you backtrack potentially where it came from? So tell me how you would do that and exactly what you would do. Because I want to tell you that pager ends up being one of the things that solves the entire case. Then you guys mentioned you found a gun in the pickup truck. Many of you missed the second gun because you didn't look close enough at the pictures. So look at the grid. If you missed it, go and look at the grid search, and you're going to find a second gun right next to an orange cone. You got to look really close. And then you're going to tell the crime lab, what do you want tested on there? There's multiple things that guns can be tested for. And I just want to tell you, that ends up helping solve. And out of the 5 people charged with double murder, it sends at least 3 of them to prison if you tell the crime lab the right thing to test for. So you need to do that. Then there's a black ski mask there. Some of you thought they were gloves, and I can understand that, but it's a black ski mask. So would you track back where it came from, who potentially had it, and exactly what are you going to have the crime lab test for? Then remember there was another gun that was found inside the truck. So you have to tell the crime lab, same thing there. Now, I'm going to give you a hint. The masks and the portable radios, they came back to 2 different department stores. So this case is just a little bit old. So they were called Grandpa's and Venture then. Now they may be called Walmart, Kmart, Target, something like that. So I want to know in this report, now that you know that, the mask and the portables came back from them, what are you going to do? You know where they came from. What investigative process would you use with that? Also, with the portables, don't forget about what are you going to ask the crime lab to do with those. When I say portables, it's the walkie-talkies. What are you going to ask them to do? Then, don't forget Chapter 8, Chapter 9, and I want you to reference that. Remember that there was a bunch of things, a bunch of clothes that were burned. What could you potentially do with that? Then let me add something more to it, is that you guys talked about doing a grid searching, but you haven't really said much about actually doing a neighborhood canvas where you're knocking on doors and you're looking to find out did anybody see or hear anything. So I want you to think about that at both locations. And most of you missed something at the very beginning. Who would you talk to? Who would you interview? So you may have to watch this video a second time or even a third time to catch everything that I said. I'm actually obviously looking off a list I have off to the right of the computer, which is why I'm wearing these glasses. So you need to go through each item. I'm going to count them and make sure and tell the crime scene, tell the crime lab what you want them to test. You're also going to talk about where you found it, what you're going to do with it, and what type of follow-up investigation you're going to use. You're going to need to use Chapter 8, and you're going to need to use Chapter 9. You have the book, and you have the PowerPoint to go through that. You may have to come up with some speculation to get specifics, but do the best that you can. If you have any questions, send me an email, answer it, but be specific. Think about solving this double murder investigation. Take care and good luck.